Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Scott Reynolds with me on a Monday evening as the primetime podcast of Draft Week 2022 get underway, and we are talking Bucs final 7-round mock draft via Pewter Report, which dropped last night. So most of you have had the opportunity to check it out now for about 22 hours. And tell us how much you absolutely hate it and think that the Bucs are not going to do any of this stuff. Scott, it's been challenging putting this thing together, probably more than any year. We'll go through some of the recent years and talk about it today, but it's been a challenge to put this whole thing together for this year. I think we like where it ended up, but even today we're like, man, there's like 6 or 7 options we could see kind of in the first round, and that was not even the case last year, probably.
Yeah, I know. It really is a unique year for the draft because it's not just the Buccaneers. Last year, we kind of knew they were going to draft an outside linebacker, an edge rusher. That's something they needed because Jason Pierre-Paul wasn't going to play forever. So they went ahead and they drafted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who we had as a Bucs best bet, and also in our mock draft. And then we also knew they were going to draft a quarterback, which they did, in Kyle Trask. So we did pretty good last year. Because we kind of knew the positions and maybe who they were going to draft. But this year, it's not even the Buccaneers that we're unsure about. It's the teams in front of them, right? I mean, this is going to be an unpredictable first round of the mock draft.
Right. It's going to be very unpredictable. It's going to be wild for every team. And the quarterback situation being an unknown in front of the Bucs is obviously going to create a bunch of wrinkles and a bunch of challenges, I think, for the teams at the back end. Some will be good if the quarterbacks end up coming off the board.
Right.
Others could be, hey, the quarterbacks are falling. There's a bunch of teams in the second that want to trade up, and now they're looking at their options and they're saying kind of what's on the table and all that stuff. So there are more challenges than normal in this year's draft, Scott, especially from our standpoint to try and analyze this whole thing. But we are going to do that. We are going to jump into that. Before we do that, though, I do want to address everything from today. And if people didn't see on Twitter, I announced today that this is going to be my last week at Pewter Report and in the sports media field in general. The reason for that is not because of anything that's wrong or drama, which I'm grateful for, which has been incredible here. The reason for that is that my wife and I, Britt and I, and our 2 kids, Kaylee and Harper, we feel really called to go about doing some other work outside of the sports media arena. Working with college students and young adults and helping to mentor and raise up the next group of leaders in our country in a lot of key capacities. I'll try and explain some of what we're doing just so people isn't totally vague for people. It was hard to get specific on Twitter, but we will basically be working. A lot of it will be summer camp oriented and sports camps and things like that. And we'll be working with a lot of the staff that will come in there in the summer, which are from college campuses and young adults that are teachers and things like that come in to work in the summers with kids that are ages 8 to 18. So they work with the kids. We work with the kids too, but we also work with the adults and the leaders that will be there. So we'll be recruiting them in the off seasons and then working with them in the summers. And there will be opportunities for a lot of spiritual, emotional, mental, cultural understanding, growth in a lot of key areas that my wife and I are really passionate about, especially areas that we feel like as Christians that the church has done a poor job of showing and exemplifying like how Jesus wants us to love people in those arenas. And so that's been very meaningful to us. We have been passionate about that kind of stuff for a long time and have tried to do as much of it as we can while in the sports media arena. It's been very challenging though. It just, you know me, Scott, and it takes a lot of time and energy to do this job and to do it well, especially. And, you have exemplified that, I think, for years here. And hopefully I've been able to do some of that as well during my time. And just, it takes a lot of time and energy to do it at the way that I want to do it. And it leaves very little for other things that I think I need to be spending more of my life doing and Britt as well. So we've talked a long time. This opportunity came up. You and I have been talking about it for a little while too here. And I let you know my decision a while back. And so we've been planning and preparing, and the rest of the staff, have been planning and preparing with them. Love them to death. And you all have been incredibly supportive as I make this decision, which I know is going to come out of nowhere for a lot of people. And this is absolutely the hardest part, is that I just genuinely love Bucs fans. Like, I love y'all, like Steeler background, whatever. y'all are my people. Like, there's no question in the world about that. And y'all have been so amazing to me and to my family. And I just want to thank you all so much for that. This week is going to be great that we get to spend this week together and rock out of the podcast, a bunch of more times. And then this weekend during the draft show for 20 hours of it, try and be on as much as I can with y'all and soak it all in. Y'all have been just incredible, honestly, for us and this podcast. And we are just so appreciative and so grateful for everything. I mean, my Twitter today, I've already sobbed like 3 times today. It's just been very difficult, but also I'm very, very grateful. It hurts to know that I'm letting a lot of people down. I know that you all have been so supportive and great, but I also know that, it is kind of sudden, and I do apologize for that. There's no really better way to do it in a lot of ways. It's just, it was time for me. That's just all that it was. It was just time for something new. I've gotten to do this for 10 years. I'm extremely grateful for all the opportunities I've gotten to do, unbelievable things, and none of it's been better than Pewter Report. All the things I've done in my 10 years in this career, none of it's been better than Pewter Report. It's a special place to work. It's a special team. There'll be new additions that are going to be special to Pewter Report. It's going to be awesome. Please, everybody, if you're listening, just keep supporting this team, keep supporting this podcast. I am still going to be involved behind the scenes, helping the transitions and helping to train the staff. And a bunch of the people we have now are stepping into new and bigger, better roles. And some already are, and they're killing it in those roles. And I'm going to be helping with all of that stuff for the foreseeable future. And I'll still be on Twitter. And when the draft comes around, I'll still be active in draft coverage. Scott, you and I have talked a lot about what that could look like for me. I don't want to commit to anything at this point in time. I just want to be able to go into this next chapter. I know I'm talking a lot here. I just want to be clear with a lot of people about kind of where I'm at and what's on the horizon. I don't want to promise anybody something and then not be able to do it. But you and I have talked about what it would look like if I did some draft stuff or jumped on a pod or some of the game day broadcasts that we do. So I still feel like there will be some level of connection between myself and Pewter Report, definitely behind the scenes.
I think what you're trying to say, John, is you're going to wait about 41 days and
about 41 days, and we'll see how I feel.
No, if I could just say something real quick, a couple things. I reflected a little bit on the Pewter Report staff in my SR's Fab Five. I turned 50 on Saturday, kind of a milestone birthday. It's one of those achievement things. It's like, I made it to 50. You know, no, not at all. But my point is I was writing that Fab Five, having the opportunity to help develop young writers is something that I enjoy, and I've had the chance to do that with a lot of what the insider term that we use here at Pewter Report is superheroes, right? There's no sidekicks. If you're going to join Pewter Report, you got to be a full-fledged superhero. And John, you were an absolute superhero, and the great thing about becoming part of the Pewter Report family is when you're part of our family, you don't leave. Right, you're always part of the family. You're part of our alumni, and that invites you to come back whenever you want in any capacity that you want to. Right, just like Trevor Sikkema, right? I mean, and we've had others. The door is always open, and I think the great thing is that the challenge for me has always been to find more excellent talent and really keep Pewter Report going and growing. And the thing that John has done is he's not only done that and helped me with that, he's taken it to the next level. I mean, in terms of recruiting people, I mean, our stable is as full as it's ever been in terms of great writers. And John's had a huge role in helping to attract those people and train them. And we, like John said, we've got a couple more people kind of waiting in the hopper that are going to be joining the team. And so it's been an awesome experience working with you. Your Bucs briefing column is top notch. It's going to be missed. Your analyst mindset in terms of not just draft prospects, but in season coverage of the Buccaneers. You've spearheaded really taking this podcast to YouTube and making it the monster that it is with over 8,100 subscribers. So, John, you're absolutely going to be missed. There's no doubt about it. At the same time, you're always part of the Pewter Report family. And so it's not goodbye, it's see you later. But the great thing is you're not going anywhere tonight.
That's right.
Or this week. We have a full week's worth of draft coverage to enjoy you and your analysis. And if you think you're going to, if if you think that you've seen the last of John Ledyard, no, we're going to be on about 20 hours worth of Pewter Report draft shows sponsored by Beef O'Brady's Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday all day. And I just want to say it's been an absolute honor and joy to work with you. And I'm really excited for you. When you told me, John, about the next chapter for you and Britt and the kids and going back to Pennsylvania, it was definitely bittersweet. There's no doubt about it. But I think, I think that the first thing that I felt was just happiness for you, because this is a calling. This is not just a decision. This is you're being called to do something, right? And I'm happy for you. As sad as I am that we're not going to be working together, I'm thrilled for this opportunity for you, because it wasn't an option. It wasn't a choice. It truly was a calling. And you explained that to me just like you explained it to everybody else. So
yeah. Absolutely. No, I appreciate
very,
that
very
so much.
proud of you for making this decision. I understand it. You and I have talked about it a long time, and I'm just thrilled for you to have this opportunity, and and to make your heart as full as it can be, and to share your heart with others. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is what it's all about. It's been all what it's been about at Pewter Report too. That is one of the key things I think in all of this is just the relationships that we have in our group and our staff, and what's been built there. And that's the part that I'm most proud of and most appreciative of, honestly, is that whole group. And we'll have plenty of time with them, obviously, the draft show and all of that. So I'm looking forward to all that, and wanted to talk about this today, and I wanted to just kind of get it out there for people. And then obviously, I'm willing to answer any questions that people have, things like that. If they
I think the biggest thing we have to address, John, is what Ben is saying. Mike Florio is reporting the tension between John Ledyard and Coach Arians as the key reason for his retirement from PR. It was actually double whammy. The tension was so high that John's retiring from PR and sports coverage, and Bruce is retiring from coaching. So
neither of us could handle it
like that. So
it's funny. We've laughed about how much like my situation is similar to Bruce's in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of funny, but yeah, no, it is bittersweet for sure. Right now it's just very hard, to be honest. Like hard to wrap my mind around all of it, to be honest. I love this pod and I love what we've built at Pewter Report so much. It's where I need to. I know I'm doing what I need to do, and I appreciate so much all the support. And like I said, I'm trying to be as involved as I possibly can be in the transitions. And then I'm definitely not going to be a stranger. I'll always be part of Pewter Report and what's happening here, because I just love it and appreciate everything about this place and the fan base so much. Like Bucs fans are just awesome. Like they just are. Like people have no idea. People have no idea.
Pewter
let them talk. Yeah,
are special. They really
and
are.
Let other people talk. I don't care what other people on the outside say about Bucs fans. They're always going to be hating and talking about the ones who are there are the best. Like that's true. And I've worked in other markets and dealt with other fan bases covering the NFL and the Steelers, and there's not a fan base that I found that's even close to the Bucs. So I just appreciate the heck out of them. So I'm going to get emotional if we keep talking about this. We got to move on. We got to talk about some, and I appreciate all these comments. You guys are amazing.
Actually, we have a great super chat here. Let me just get to a couple of these from Leo. Good luck, John. So 2 comments. 2nd round draft pick for Brady. Laughed my ass off. Okay, Chris Sims. I honestly think Brady's going to retire. 45 has always been his end game. John, you and I were talking about this in our private chat the other day. We're just texting about it. It just seems like 45 was kind of the number that he put in his mind, Tom Brady, a couple of years ago, and didn't like the way the season ended. Obviously, looked at the landscape in the NFC. It's there for the taking. The division is there for the taking again. Jason Light brought everybody that kind of needed to be back. It just seems like this is the last year that we're going to see Tom Brady in an NFL uniform, not just a Buccaneer uniform.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. And Brady said it. I don't have much left. Like, I just don't know, man. Like, that's the dude that's. And I honestly, like, if I'm being 100% honest, I hope he hasn't overextended it already. Like, I think he felt that urge as he was retired. He felt that urge to not go out the way that it ended, with the weirdness of reporting the retirement and all that, and having just lost that game to the Rams. And I just hope he hasn't overstretched it. Like, I hope that he's still able to be as focused and as zeroed in as he always has been, and that he isn't coming back. Like, retire on top is great. Don't get me wrong, but there's no guarantee that happens. And obviously there's a great chance it happens this year. They have a great roster. There's a very clear chance that could happen for him. And maybe that's all he wants to explore. But if it doesn't go their way, and you need luck, you need lots of things. We saw it last year. Bucs probably would have won the Super Bowl if they'd have been healthy, or at least been in it. And they didn't stay healthy, and that's part of it. And there's just a lot of wrinkles that go into this. And trying to retire on top is tricky. I know maybe he just wants to give one more go and still loves the game, and I hope that that is the reason it's enough. But even if it is this year, I just think, I don't know. He's always said 45. I think he just felt that, and I think he'll retire after this year. But we'll see. There's a lot.
I think too, John, that I almost think Tom Brady wants to kind of do what Peyton Manning did, see his skills decline a little bit, so he can come to grips with, I'm sliding down the hill now. I'm no longer climbing the hill at 44, right? I'm sliding down the hill, but I won a Super Bowl, so I'm going to go out now. I think that's exactly how Tom Brady wants to do this. Is he does not want to lead the league in passing yards, passing touchdowns. Well, maybe touchdowns, but he doesn't want to drop back that many times, throw the ball that many times. I think that he wants to, in his mind, have a little justification. Statistically, it wasn't the same as it was in 2021, and we won the Super Bowl. Okay, Giselle, let's ride off.
That could be what happens, honestly. Like, I hope that he gets that storybook ending. Like I told you, that would be just perfect for that career and for the Bucs tenure and everything. And we'll see what happens. Honestly, it's going to be fascinating to watch and discover. But that is something that's being talked about right now. That second round pick obviously is pretty laughable, that report. But I think the bigger picture will be the free agency after this draft. The Bucs did restructure him and they didn't extend him. And I just think that there's a lot people are looking at that and, he wants to be a free agent. Maybe. Yeah, sure. That's maybe a fraction of it, but I just don't know if either side knows that he's going to play beyond this year, and you don't want to be on the scoop for more in the terms of the cap. So I think it's a wise decision for both sides right now, and we'll just see how this year progresses. That's all.
That's right.
There's the focus on right now. All right, let's get to this 7-round mock draft here. This this took us a while, Scott. And
it did.
We came up with what the first round pick is.
Listen, in full disclosure, I write the whole thing, but John and I spend countless hours. We spent countless hours this offseason, not just watching film, but you and I talking and texting and kind of understanding the methodology and all of this. And honestly, I think we've driven some of what we've seen in the mock drafts out there. I think that you're probably the first one to put Zion Johnson on the map as a potential Bucs pick. And, we had Lewis Seen in there as well in another mock draft. I think that we were probably one of the first ones there to do that. Some of those guys ended up in our Bucs best bets, not necessarily Zion Johnson. We'll get into that in a second, but we went with Logan Hall. And let's talk a little bit about our methodology, John. I'll let you start and I'll kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I think with Logan Hall, the biggest thing was this. We know the Bucs are looking for pass rush help, especially on the interior. Bruce Arians was clear about that at the combine. That has continued to resonate with us. Yes. What they're looking for is also clear. Athleticism, upfield penetration ability, quickness, pass rush, 3 technique type of player to partner with Vita Vea. That's pretty much all describes Logan Hall. I wish he was a little bit twitchier off the ball, but I think that could be the case with some tweaks to his stance. His stance is a little bit too square maybe at Houston, and a lot of college players will play that way and then get a little bit quicker off the ball in the NFL because it's basically a pass rush league. And so I think
at the same time, get off is something you can teach and get better with. That's
especially snap timing.
You can get better at that.
Right. There are definitely paths forward for that for him. And he's obviously a very good athlete. What stands out the most to me with him is just how low he's able to play in the run game, despite being 6'6". He is very flexible. He needs to get a little bit stronger, but going into 283 and then maintaining his athleticism was a huge win at the combine. Having said all this, Scott, yes, I think this fit makes sense. They've been the top 30 visit. They've interviewed him at the combine. There's obviously been the interest there. He fits the prototype. I don't know if I'd be wild about this pick if that actually happened. Remember, this is a predictive mock from us. This is not what we would do if we were the Bucs GM. We are guessing and predicting that Logan Hall will be the Bucs first round pick. We don't think it's the only option. We'll get to some of the other options in a second, but that's what this is. This is predictive in nature. So I would not be crazy about this pick, but I think there's a high probability that this is the pick for the Bucs if he's on the board at 27.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jason Licht tries to trade back a few spots, maybe with Detroit, right? At 32, Detroit comes up and gets a quarterback, maybe a Desmond Ridder, maybe a Sam Howell, whoever. And then all of a sudden, Jason Licht has another middle round pick because that's what he values. And then you get Logan Hall at 32. I would love that situation. I would feel much better about that, getting him a couple spots back, getting extra draft capital for that. And the thing is when you look at the fact we talk about Ndamukong Suh and how the Bucs will have to replace him, he's 35. If he resigns, we believe he will. Steve McClendon is 36. Not sure if they're going to bring him back yet. Obviously, Suh is the priority. Will Golston had a chance to talk to him last night at length at the Bruce Arians Family Foundation Gala, and he's in great shape, right? Will's 31, though, or he'll be 31 this year, and is in his 10th year. And when I look at this guy right here, I mean, that's Will Golston, folks, right there. Number 92, he looks like Will Golston. And when you
same weight, same height,
just about
when they coming out, yeah. I guess Will got a little heavier. Since
although he looked about 290 last night. He was looked in very good shape.
Should ask him how, I guess if Hall's the pick, we'll definitely ask him. Okay, you have similar body types. What's it take to get to 300 or whatever?
Exactly. And the thing is, Hall played at Houston at about 265, 270, then got up to 283. And I think a lot of people believe that he can, with this frame, get bigger, add more size, add more bulk. Again, you look at that 92, it looks very much like Will Golston. So then you sit there and say, well, why in the world would you want to draft, a Will Golston type in the first round, right? I mean, I'll tell you why. Will Golston has been a 10-year starter in Tampa Bay. If you can get a 10-year starter late in the first round, like that's money in the NFL. And especially this late in the first round. And I think Will Golston, 4.5 sacks last year. That was his career high. I think you and I both agree, John, this is a guy that has better upside as a pass rusher. He had 6 sacks last year for Houston, was a bit of a late bloomer. And the thing is he's 22 years old. So as I wrote in the mock, if Devontae Wyatt from Georgia isn't there, Logan Hall might be the pick. But I'm telling you, John, I wouldn't be surprised if Logan Hall is the guy over Devontae Wyatt for a couple reasons. As you pointed out in our texting the other day, Devontae Wyatt's over 24 years old. The oldest player Jason Licht's drafted in the first round is Vita Vea, who is special. Everybody else is like 20 and 21.
And Vea was 23, which is older for a prospect, but he just turned 23.
He's special.
Almost everybody else has been young. Almost everybody else has been underclassmen. Especially in the first round. I don't think that they won't draft Devontae Wyatt. I just don't think it's the stone cold lock if he's on the board that other people think. There are questions. Devontae Wyatt has had stuff in the past with his character. I don't know where that's at now. Hopefully it's better. There's certainly talk that it's better, but there's also talk that when we ask around and talk to people that are very much in the know, he was not 100% dialed in at Georgia. And then this past year he got dialed in and he had his best year, but you mentioned the sack production, and I think when you marry that with what's on tape, it's legitimate. He has great traits, but he's not a great pass rusher right now. And also the scheme altered that. Everybody's production was spread out. Those guys a lot of time were decoys so the linebackers could get sacks.
That's right.
That's kind of how they worked at Georgia. But still, there are opportunities to win one-on-one, and he doesn't always do that. The traits are clearly there. Physically and athletically, he's definitely who they would draft. Speaking of Devontae Wyatt here.
Yeah.
But there are other things that are peripheral concerns with him that don't exist with Logan Hall, who his coaches rave about. The work ethic's been there. He's put on weight since he's been there. I definitely think he can get to 290. I know Supply and Demand asked, can he get to 290, 300? Yes, I think he can get to 290, 300. That's definitely in the cards for him. So there's a lot of outcomes for Logan Hall that could be better. And you mentioned Will Golston, and I know some people are going to compare him because of the reasons you mentioned with the size and the height and everything. I do think Hall is just a better athlete. There's a higher ceiling there for him. I also wonder if Will Golston had better coaching early in his career, would he be more closer to the player we've seen the last 2 years, who's a pretty good player? Still, nobody would take Will Golston in the first round for sure. And I think Hall is a higher ceiling, but obviously if he just becomes Will Golston in his career, that's probably not good enough for a first rounder. But you're right with the longevity. That's obviously something that's important. It wouldn't be the worst pick ever either. But I do wonder if Golston had better coaching in his career and was allowed to work
John,
the way that he does now, primarily as a 3 technique right now, if he would have thrived earlier in his career.
Exactly. And the thing is Will and I were actually talking about that last night. The first good coach he had was not till Joe Cullen in 2014 and 2015. And then he had a lull until Casey Rogers got here. So he told me last night, out of about the 5 or 6 defensive line coaches he's had in Tampa, he's only had 2 good ones. As a matter of fact, and I remember talking to Joe Cullen about this, and also Will and I talked about it last night. If Joe Cullen had stayed on with Dirk Cutter's staff in 2016, he would have put weight on Will and put him at 3 technique. There was a game against the Atlanta Falcons where Will Golston had 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble on Matt Ryan, and really was more at home as an interior player, as a 3 technique, than he was as a 4-3 defensive end, like they tried to make him under Lovie Smith and Mike Smith and Greg Schiano's staff, et cetera. And what you're saying now with Will Golston, he really plays a 4-eye, which is it's inside of the tackle in that B gap. It's almost like a 3 technique. It's just shaded out a little bit further. And he is an interior player. But the thing is, when you look at Logan Hall, John, he can play the true 3 technique like an Ndamukong Suh. He also can play the 4-eye and the 5-eye, which is where you've got that defensive end in between, in that C gap between the tight end and the tackle in some formations, usually double tight formations. And so I like the versatility. I think with Devontae Wyatt, he's pretty much just a B gap 3 tech defensive tackle, the way he's built. But with the longer size of Logan Hall, I even think too, if you want some packages where he's a big, edge guy, he and Anthony Nelson in kind of like third and short situations, I just think he's a lot more versatile and flexible for a Todd Bowles defense than Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, his lack of length is kind of a funny thing about him because of his frame. Like, just the fact that he doesn't have very long arms, especially for his frame, is a little bit goofy. I think that would help him a lot. I think both guys are plenty flexible and you could move them around. I don't know. They could take Wyatt. I mean, there's no question. If you ask me right now, Scott, who are the top 5 guys that are on the board for the Bucs if the draft falls, kind of as many have predicted it. You and I kind of came up with this list, and I think we're still in agreement a couple of days after we talked about it. But Logan Hall, Devontae Wyatt, Traylon Burks, if he's there. I don't think he's going to be there, but we'll see. Trey McBride, who I know a lot of people think that's early for him and probably early for Hall. And then Lewis Seen, the safety from Georgia. I think, you still agree those are probably the top 5 players? Yeah.
I agree.
And there's other names we've talked about that we think could be on the board.
We should let our Pewter people know, John, that we came this close to putting Trey McBride in there at number 27 for the Buccaneers.
We did. Yeah.
And I would not be surprised too if the Buccaneers went that way. And our reasoning for that is if the board plays out as we expect, where Jordan Davis and potentially Devontae Wyatt are gone, and we think this team likes Logan Hall better than Travis Jones. So then at 27, you have a choice between defensive tackle 3 or tight end 1. And in this year's draft class at tight end, I think you're in agreement with me on this, that there's a lot of number 2 tight ends, maybe 1 or 2 guys that have the potential to really be a number 1. Trey McBride is one of those with his athleticism, with the production he had catching the ball, and just his workmanlike ability. He's an overall tight end. He loves to block as much as he does catch the ball, and he had 91 catches last year.
Yeah, he's just a Bucs fit to the max. Like, that's why it's so hard for us to say, oh, they'll pass on him at 27. They might. I mean, they might try to wait and get him at 60. They might move back and try to get him. They might move up from 60 and try to get him after they made a first-round pick. Yeah. All those things are possible because I just think they are going to want to come out of this draft with this guy. So is he the top priority? I think he's the top priority at tight end. I'd be shocked if he isn't the top priority at tight end. Is he top priority in the draft for them? I'm not sure. But with McBride, who I've just kind of warmed to more and more the more I've seen him, I don't know that there's this sky-high ceiling, but he's probably going to be good. Like, he just is a very competent all-around player. He's got to improve as a route runner, but he makes contested catches. He has great ball skills. He almost never drops the football. He addresses, he can get the ball behind him in the air. He's got the leaping ability and athleticism. There's enough speed here. Ran 4.56 at his pro day. Even if you tack on a little bit to that, I mean, a 4.6 tight end is a plenty fast tight end in any NFL, especially today's where you're often got guys rolling down in the box, and he can take advantage of those situations. So I really think that in this system, this is exactly what they look for. This is the ideal blend of blocking and nastiness, edginess, and receiving ability that they look for. And that's why I think McBride is going to be very high in the minds of the Bucs coaches and scouts. And I think because of that, there is a chance that they take him at 27, even though I know that's high for a lot of people and probably high for me too. I don't have him in that range of the draft. So we'll see how that part of it shakes out with the tight end group. Obviously,
I was told last night at the Arians Family Foundation Gala, and everybody was there, right? Jason Light, John Spytek, Mike Beal, Mike Greenberg, Rob McCartney. They had some scouts there. Alex Smith was there, former Buccaneer, who's in the scouting department now. a bunch of coaches. I had one person in the know tell me this is going to be the most unpredictable draft. And you will see players in the first round that get drafted in the first round that will draft quote unquote second round players. But the reality of it is there is a bunch of those guys that are second round players that teams believe will actually be first round players, because there's about 15 to 18 true classic first round players, first round caliber graded players in this draft. And then there's probably about 40 second round caliber players. Yeah. That's really where the meat, the richness of this draft is: second, third, and fourth round. So,
and I think that's where people get frustrated, Scott. They say, "Oh, McBride's not a star. Like, he's not going to be an elite tight end." Okay, who's going to be elite? That's at 27. Like, there's a chance for some guys too. Maybe Scene gets there. Maybe Wyatt gets there, but those aren't guarantees. I don't have them as first round graded players for me. I'm obviously a very stingy grader, but I don't have them as elite player potential grades. That's what first round grades are for me, or special grades for me, which are, no players in this class so far, I don't think, have that designation for me, where Jamar Chase had it last year.
Like generational type players.
Generational type players. Yeah, players that are going to be are going to absolutely be in the top tier at their position in the NFL for most of their careers, in my opinion. Like that, I don't see any player like that, and I don't see any. There's hardly any players, maybe 9 or 10 to me, that have a first round grade, which means they could be a high quality starter.
This one's a fast riser up the draft boards right here. This is the new Celsius Arctic Vibe, people. Okay. Now, they say this is a limited edition, but I'm telling you, I think this is going to be here to stay. This is a new top 5 for me. I'm almost like Dane Brugler, where I have more than 5 in my top 5, John, if you know what I'm talking about. But
120 round one.
Yeah, I've got like 10 of these awesome Celsius tasty energy beverages in my top 5. Yeah. So why is it not a top 10? Because they're all top 5. Orange is number 1, but Arctic Vibe is up there. And the thing about this is, what you love about the Arctic Vibe is it's the same thing as the other Celsius drinks. Different flavor, but same great flavor. You get the same energy, no sugar, no preservatives. And you know what that means? It means no sugar crash. And that's important, because there's a lot of energy drinks out there that will give you the energy and you regret it a couple hours later when you're ready to take a nap. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is the fast bars at Celsius. Now, I haven't had one of these fast bars in a while, John. Do you know why?
How come? You're out of them?
Yes, I ate them all.
That's my problem too.
Yeah, not just me, but everyone in my family. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to buy some more. And the great thing about this is, if you go there and use the promo code 5FASTLANE, that's 5FASTLANE, you're going to save $5 off a 12-pack. And that's from today through the end of May. Okay, so we'll have a link later in the description here. But if you go to Amazon and you use the promo code 5FASTLANE, you'll save $5 off a 12-pack. Now, they come in 2 fantastic flavors, and these are the best protein bars that you can find in terms of taste and protein. And you've got the white chocolate cookies and cream, and you've got the salted caramel peanut crunch. Right. And 2 fantastic flavors. I highly recommend washing them down with the Celsius. And the great thing is you can get them both on Amazon. Use that promo code to save $5 off. And while you're on Amazon, grab a case or 2 or 4 of Celsius and do the subscribe and save. Once you know the flavors you like, or if you don't know what flavors you like, get the assorted flavors. They'll send you a whole bunch. You can try them. Then you do the subscribe and save. They ship them right to your door, and you save money.
Great stuff. Celsius, they're the best. You all know that. Most of y'all are fans already. If you're not yet, definitely get out there and try it. Here's a good comment here from Ben Leeper. The intel on Ajabo in Scott's article is interesting. What are your thoughts on number 27? You and I talked a little bit about this morning, Scott, just kind of throwing around Ajabo. I believe it's fair for us to designate him as the wild card potential pick at 27 for the Bucs in this class. There is no question, if he were fully healthy, this would probably be a Bucs best bet for us, or at least in the conversation for
Well,
that. It would be up there, but he also
yeah,
might be off the board if he were
I
fully
think he'd be
healthy.
off the board if he were healthy. Yeah.
And it's not just any injury with him. It's a torn Achilles, which is
Yes.
different than an ACL in terms of the
Yes.
recovery. Don't care about what happened with Cam Akers. That is still very abnormal. People that were like,
look at OJ
"Oh,
Howard. He wasn't
Right.
the same player.
Sure, exactly. It's a very tough recovery for most people. Akers made it back and it was freakish, and hopefully that becomes the norm. That'd be awesome. It is not the norm yet. There's no reason for teams to expect that to be the norm. So we're going to go with the larger sample and say this is going to be probably a season-ending injury for Jabo in terms of maybe we could come back late in the year, but at that point, why would a team want to throw him into the mix at that point? We'll see how things progress. But either way, you're not counting on him for sure as of
you're right.
beginning
This
of
was
May.
an injury that didn't happen at the end of last year.
Correct.
This
It
happened
in March,
at his pro day. Yeah. So it's not like he even had
end of March.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not even
so
like
he probably is outed for the year.
Right.
And so if you take him in the first round, you still have a 4-year control of him if you use the 5th year option eventually on him. So, but if you don't, if you wait, then you're gonna have him under contract for 3 years, and it's just different. He's a developmental player, and some people are like, oh, he probably wasn't gonna help a team much in year one anyway. To a degree, he's a developmental player, and I argue that makes it even actually worse because now he hasn't been able to spend any time on the field this year. And then he's going to need next year to develop. And so rather than being a player that could just hit the ground running when he comes off that injury. So there's just too many questions for us here to feel confident the Bucs would take him. Yeah. Do they like him though?
They like him.
Yeah.
They like him.
No question. They like him. So we'll see. I don't know what that will mean, but I don't think they want a redshirt player.
Yeah.
But they like him.
John, so. I think it would have been different if Tom Brady didn't come back. Right.
Maybe.
I think if Brady had not have come back, they're kind of like, okay, we're kind of not, we don't use the word rebuild. We're in reload. Okay, whatever term you want to use, you're in the post Brady era, right?
Yeah.
But when Brady comes back, you're in the Super Bowl's open window, right? I mean, that's where this team is at right now. So I think they've got to get a player that will help them this year and have an impact there. And I think we need to pause real quick. And that's kind of why we didn't go with Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green in our Bucs best bet for an offensive guard. And we didn't put one in our mock draft early because they've got 3 players in Aaron Stinney and Nick Leverett and Robert Hainsey, last year's 3rd round pick, to choose from to have a pretty good battle royale in training camp. And the reality of it is, and John, if you remember, Jason Light said this at his press conference. You don't know who these guys are until you get them in the building. You can draft a guy, but you just don't know. You want to pencil a guy in as a first-year starter. It doesn't always happen. I mean, John Ross comes to mind in Cincinnati. He wasn't ready to play. He was a bust, with the Bengals. I don't think Zion Johnson would be a bust. But the thing is, when you're drafting a guard in the first round, if Aaron Stinney beats him out, or Robert Hainsey or whoever, if your first-round pick, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, if he does not win that starting job, he's on the bench his rookie season. That's it. He's not helping you. Whereas if you get a player like a Lewis Seen from Georgia, he can rotate in with Keanu O'Neal.
Packages,
right? Yeah. Logan Hall can rotate in with Will Golston and Ndamukong Suh. Traylon Burks could see the field as wide receiver 4. With the guard, though, if he's not your day one starter and doesn't become a starter, it's a redshirt year for your number 1 pick.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do, by the way, think I would be shocked if Zion Johnson didn't eventually, at least by the time a couple weeks of the season got underway, just because of my opinion of him, beat out those guys. But I think it's a reason why you don't pick Kenyon Green if he's there, because Kenyon Green is not as technically ready or advanced as Zion Johnson is. And so, you're absolutely going to need some of your development, and there's no guarantee, even though he's a much higher ceiling than their other options. That's why I argued against him, drafting him in a weekend article that I wrote at Pewter Report, is just that I don't think it matches the timeline for the team. And I think that's an important part of drafting. You can't get so caught up in it, but I do think it's an important part of drafting. Not only that, Scott, I'll add this to what you were saying there. I think the Bucs don't feel like they have to use a high value asset on their 5th offensive lineman. They feel like they have 4 guys who are all under contract, who are still young enough and capable enough and healthy enough for them to thrive with this offensive line for the foreseeable future. And they don't feel like at this time that 5th player has to be a bona fide stud or star. in terms of asset allocation, where they want to prioritize value. I don't believe the 5th offensive lineman fits that bill for them. Could they take one in the 3rd round, 4th round? Absolutely. And develop another guy? Absolutely they could. They believe in their ability to develop offensive linemen, I think. But I don't see that happening in round 1, regardless of who's on the board or how they feel about it. I just think they're going to prioritize and look at other positions at that point in the draft.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I also think too that Jason Licht, knowing him like I do, maybe he will prove me wrong. I think that you're going to see a defensive player for Todd Bowles in the 1st round, and I think it's going to be Hall.
Yeah. I think they want to do that. If the board
Devontae
allows
Wyatt,
them
Lewis
to,
Cine, I think one of those 3 players will. Yeah.
Let's talk about Cine because this is a lot of people asking about him in the chat, and rightfully so. We mentioned him. We said the 2 offensive players, McBride and Burks, talked about Hall and Wyatt.
And he was our 1st round pick in our last mock draft for the Bucs prior to this last one here.
And Cine I'll just let the cat out of the bag. He'll be a Bucs best bet as well for us. We feel pretty strongly that the Bucs like him. This would very easily be the 1st round pick. Would not surprise us at all if this was. Here's the thing with Cine that's interesting. Here's the thing with safety that's interesting. This was my one question with our whenever we finish our final 7-round mock draft, we always have one thing that if this happens, it'll be what bites us in terms of could have the ripple effect. What could bite us in this mock is just not quite knowing what's going to happen at safety with this team. They have put some resources into it. Logan Ryan, they've said, is not a replacement for Jordan White, and not a pure safety, but will he play safety? Mike Edwards is not a strong safety, but will he play strong safety? Will he play free safety? And will Winfield play some strong safety? And how much do they count on Keanu Neal? The contract suggests not a lot. They don't necessarily want to put him in pen as a starter. So it seems like there's enough question marks there where they could draft a safety in the 1st round, or maybe they don't draft one at all. But I kind of think they are going to draft one, and we didn't really have as one of the high value picks in this draft, like a safety in there for the Bucs. And if there's one thing that shakes up this mock for us, it's a safety instead of maybe them taking a corner like we had in the 3rd round. Yeah. And so that could shift everything around a little bit to where all of a sudden D tackles later, or tight end gets bumped down to the 3rd round and D tackles in the 2nd. Maybe that's Winfrey. And then in the 3rd round, it's a tight end like Cade Otton or Jeremy Ruckert or maybe Jelani Woods, and then running backs in the 4th or something. It could shift things around if they take a tight end early, and Cine would probably be that guy in our opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing too is, with Sean Murphy-Bunting and Jamel Dean being in contract years, I don't think the team wants to necessarily add someone this year. I don't think Todd Bowles is afraid of playing rookie cornerbacks. He did that in 2019 with those players. Yeah. So I think
Hargraves and Stewart. Oh, well,
that's
Stewart
right.
Wasn't a rookie, but all those guys.
Yeah. So I don't think that he would be opposed to drafting a rookie next year and playing that rookie if you got the right guy. But I think that the Buccaneers, especially with Sean Murphy-Bunting losing half a season, and he was a 2nd-round pick, and Jamel Dean missing parts of 4 games with various injuries, they would love to give these guys an opportunity to play as many of the 17 games as possible to give them the truest evaluation before either throwing money at these guys and re-signing them or kicking them to the curb in free agency, because they have time invested in them. They have high day 2 draft picks, Sean Murphy-Bunting again, 2nd round, Jamel Dean 3rd round. They want to give these guys the opportunity to either put up or shut up. And if you draft another cornerback, especially 1st, 2nd round, whatever, there's going to be the impetus to get that guy on the field. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Competition is always a great thing, but it almost seems like you're going to be pushing one of those guys out the door quickly if you get a 1st or 2nd round cornerback in there for the Buccaneers right now.
So we went 3rd round, right, for that deal.
Yes.
And added to the room a player that you've been very fond of. I've been fond of what I've seen from him, Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska. Not necessarily. I mean, again, this is a guy who is not necessarily physically the prototype that you'd think of, like with Wyatt. He's physically the prototype. Hall, maybe it's not who you'd expect based on Bruce Arians' description, but I think he still fits the bill. That's kind of like Taylor-Britt. Like physically, we've been looking at bigger, longer corners, but his arm length was actually great. He's very stout. Yes. Even though he's not tall, he still has length and he competes in the air. I mean, for the ball, I think that's one of the biggest things about him. The double moves are sometimes a concern on tape, right? He gets beat and he gives up some plays, but he's smart and he's physical and he's aggressive. I think a lot of corners will do that in college. They take their chances. They're making their splash plays. He makes some splash plays.
Right.
He'll give a couple up, but I think it's all teachable stuff if I watch him.
Yeah, and he's a physical cornerback too, and he's physical in coverage. He's also very physical in run support as well, and I think that's important because if you remember, one of the biggest complaints last year with this Buccaneer defense was just the missed tackles, not just in the defensive front, but also in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a player that can also make some plays from the nickel and rush the quarterback. Actually had 2.5 sacks in his career and finished with 5 interceptions, including a pick 6. He'll make some tackles for loss. He had 11 pass breakups last year. He's not the 6'1" cornerback that you typically would see Todd Bowles want from a Jamel Dean, from a Carlton Davis. But I think this guy has the ability, because he's played safety earlier in his career, he can play in the slot, and I think that's where the Buccaneers would try him out first. I think they would use him as a reserve outside cornerback, and then I think they would give him a shot to compete with Sean Murphy-Bunting and Logan Ryan in the slot as well. Just because sometimes when you have those bigger, taller guys, John, you know this, 6'1", 6'2" guys, the long legs, they can't turn in transition and keep up with the quicker guys in the slot. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more agile in the slot. And I think him being 5'11" and some change, he's probably built more for the slot than he is, or I should say, some of the other corners that they could draft, a Kyer Elam, a Tariq Woolen from UTSA, who's a bigger guy at 6'2". So I think that there's some position flexibility here. I think he can be an inside and outside corner for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'll be it'd be pretty cool if this happened. I think this would be a nice little hit for us because he's an interesting player. It's just there's been some talk like, could he be a safety in the NFL? Like that that could be a possibility for him too at some point if things don't work at corner. So where is he gonna go? There's some talk he'd be 4th round. There's talk he could be late 2nd round. Like he has a kind of a wide range of different. There's not been like a ton of buzz per se. Right. Just when you look at grades and projections from experts, they do seem to be somewhere in that 2nd to 4th round range in terms of where people like him, probably depending on what games they've seen of him and such. So yeah, I like this pick. I don't know if they'll draft a corner. If they do, though, I think he will be kind of high on their radar, would be my guess.
Yep. I think they're going to come away with a corner or a safety this year. We've had a safety, and we had Lewis Seen in the mock 2 mocks ago, but this year, or this mock, we're sticking with him. He was in our last mock in the 3rd round. Robbie has got 2 draft questions. What Bucs first rounder had the most surprising career, and what Bucs first round pick surprised you the most at the time? That's probably
first
a question
rounder
for
had the
me,
most surprising
since I'm
career.
the old man.
Yeah. Well, especially when first rounder had the most surprising career. This could be good or bad. This could be go both ways. Was there a player they took in the first round that you thought would be terrible and then was great, or that you thought would be great and then was terrible?
I'm just trying to think who comes to mind here. Davin Joseph was a guard, first round pick. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler, really good guard too. I mean, like he was on the verge of kind of becoming one of those elite players at the guard position that had a nasty preseason injury that just derailed his career and cut his career short by about 3 years. I think Ali Marpet was probably like a hair better than he was, but he was kind of like in that same kind of like
could have been a star.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't appreciate Davin as much at Oklahoma, and it turned out to be. Well, here's the crazy thing. It was John Gruden's only, in 7 years, John, he only drafted 1 Pro Bowl player for the Buccaneers. That's a big reason why John Gruden got fired, is the talent just stopped. Yeah. So I would say he probably had the most surprising career. And then which Bucs first round pick surprised you the most?
Like when it was made, which pick would you, wow, like that wasn't
I would
say
Bucs 2. Okay. Michael Clayton stands out because that was a very questionable pick. I think he was like 14th overall or 16th, something like that.
Range, yeah.
And then the other one was Cadillac Williams on my birthday, ruined my birthday. He was the
You talk about
third.
this a lot, yeah.
He was the third running back taken with
In
the
the top
fifth overall
five?
pick. What are you doing, John Gruden? What are you doing?
Just even imagine
Bruce
if that happened
Allen, give me a
today.
break. Monty Kiffin about had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Okay, because at the Senior Bowl now they fell in love with, and I'm telling you right now, if Carnell Williams did not have the nickname Cadillac, he would not have been drafted by Tampa Bay. John
Unbelievable.
Gruden just has these little idiosyncrasies, and I
Yeah.
love John, I do, but
But it just
I want to
falling in
drive
love
a
with that,
Cadillac,
yeah.
man. I want to drive a Cadillac through Tampa Bay, man. That's just part of it.
And who would have been the pick if they didn't take him?
DeMarcus Ware, who Monty
That's
Kiffin
just an
Monty
absolute
Kiffin
gut punch.
coached him at the Senior Bowl that year. You know,
Jeez.
I'm telling you right now, this guy, he's the second coming Simeon Rice. I'm telling you, you want the Simeon Rice? You draft DeMarcus Ware at Troy. You draft DeMarcus Ware at Troy. He's the Simeon Rice. He'll get after the quarterback now. He'll sack the quarterback. That was the pick right there, and they blew it. Simeon Rice went, I think, 10th overall that year.
All right, DeMarcus Ware.
I'm sorry, yes, DeMarcus Ware was the
Right.
next Simeon Rice for Monty Kiffin, but didn't happen.
Wow, that's a killer. That's a rough one to look back on. Tall NFL guy says with a $5 super chat, if the pick is McBride, I hope they can trade down. Yeah, we've kind of said this. We don't necessarily address it every time we talk about the pick, but it's just out there. Like if the Bucs can trade down, they'll probably trade down if they can. Just a lot of questions as to whether they will. Now, one thing that would be good for the Bucs, there were some reports today that from some of the now I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that's in the know, like works for one of the major media companies, said they wouldn't be surprised if the first quarterback comes off the board at 20. That's wild.
Yeah.
That would change things for the Bucs. Because if the quarterbacks are all sitting there in the 20s, all of a sudden teams are going to say, okay, I get a little trade up here, but I might get quarterback of the future late in the first without having to use my top asset that I already drafted, at the top of the first, and I get the 5th-year option for a guy that's probably going to need some developmental time. Yeah. That changes some things if that happens. So you don't want the quarterbacks to not go ahead of you, but you just want them to fall far enough so the teams get greedy and come
Here's the thing, and I think you're going to see the Panthers, they're really contemplating Baker Mayfield because they would rather draft an offensive tackle, which they need, right, for that awful offensive line. They're in prime position to draft, either an Evan Neal. I mean, they can get one of the top tackles at number 6. But the thing is they don't pick again until the 3rd round. So all the good quarterbacks, well, if they are good, all the mediocre quarterbacks in this draft class are going to be gone. So they would love to get Baker Mayfield and then have Mayfield and Sam Darnold as their quarterbacks and not have to spend the 6th overall draft pick on Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. They just want to avoid that, right? I think you're in agreement with that, John.
Yes, absolutely.
And if that happens, if Carolina does not draft a quarterback at 6, then I think that scenario does happen, John. I think there's a slew of other players drafted ahead of the quarterbacks. And Tampa Bay could be in a good position at 27.
Well, teams are going to want to get ahead of the Lions. Lions are at 32, remember. It's not very often that one of the worst teams in the league that clearly needs a quarterback picks at 32. That's very rare. So it is a rare kind of wrinkle in this draft. And I've already been told by people that I very much trust, the Lions at 32 are looking to see what quarterbacks are going to be on the board because they feel like any of those guys, the top 5 basically are good options for them. And they feel like they can nab somebody. So they have to jump up a couple spots to stay ahead of people or jump up a couple spots to solidify that they've got the 2. Remember, they're picking a 2 as well. So they're going to feel like if they got 2 and they got a guy at 27 or 28 or 29 or somewhere in that range, their quarterback there, they're going to feel like they won the draft no matter what they give up to get up a couple spots. So it's all possible. The Bucs want to trade. They would love to get Logan Hall or Trey McBride and to trade down and then get the other one at 60 or something like this.
Yeah. It might be a thing too where they trade back a couple picks, get Logan Hall, they acquire a mid-round pick, then use that mid-round pick and the 2nd rounder to move up in the 2nd rounder to get Trey McBride and get both their guys. I can see that happening.
Mean, a myriad of options definitely on the board for the Bucs. Let's keep rolling to get to the 4th round pick for the Bucs here. A running back. This is a guy that I am not totally sure how I feel about him becoming an every down guy. Definitely a receiving option. I think he needs some polish, some refinement. You like him. We know the Bucs have talked to him and visited with him, and it's definitely an option, even though he probably wouldn't be my top choice. I think he could be an option for the team on day 3.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we started off with Rachaad White in our first mock draft as a running back pick for the Buccaneers, and we've also had in there Dameon Pierce and Isaiah Spiller. Those are some guys that we've had in our mocks. we think the Buccaneers are going to draft one of these three players, John. And we had Isaiah Spiller as our rounds 1 through 3 Bucs best bet, and then Dameon Pierce, who maybe could be a third rounder, but certainly I think will be a fourth rounder. He was our running back Bucs best bet in rounds 4 through 7. Again, we're trying to be predictive here, and so we already have those 2 running backs going in the Bucs best bet. So we're going to stick Rachaad White into the mock draft and just, again, educate Buccaneer fans. This is a guy on the radar. They have brought in a slew of running backs. They interviewed a slew of running backs at the combine. Remember, Giovanni Bernard only signed for this year. I think he's 30, 31 years old. So they'd love to have a long-term guy, I think, to pair with Leonard Fournette. All of a sudden, Keyshawn Vaughn entering year 3. I don't necessarily believe the team when they say that he could be a lead back. They've brought in way too many running backs, John, to convince me otherwise. They want another guy, I think, to challenge Keyshawn Vaughn for carries. And the other thing, too, is they saw what life was like without Leonard Fournette last year at the end of the season. And, yeah, outside of that Carolina game where Keyshawn Vaughn had a nice big touchdown run, 50-some yards, but you take that run away, and he's averaging about 3 yards per carry. And I just think that's what Keyshawn Vaughn is. With Rachaad White, you get a more of a dynamic pass catcher. He's a little bit of an upright runner. He's a little bit of a bigger back. 42 catches, 420 yards. 42 carries, 420 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaged 10 yards a carry in his 2020 season, his first year at Arizona State. Then last year had 1,000 yards on the dot, 15 touchdowns on the ground. Then he added 43 catches for 456 yards. That's a healthy 10.6 yard average and another touchdown. So this is a player that I think is a pretty good value in the 4th round that could come in as RB4. And by the end of training camp, this guy might be RB2 if he develops and learns the offense.
I think the Bucs could be swayed, honestly, just because of his fit. His fit is just that good at Arizona State. I mean, those jerseys, like I've said this before on the pod, like just hands down top.
Sparky,
jersey.
man.
So, yeah, as long as he looks that good in the jersey, they might just want to take him. So we'll see what happens with him. But White, definitely an option for them. Just the running back position in general we know they're going to – we feel very strongly they'll draft one. We put a lot of money on them. To be clear,
you and I both like Spiller.
We both like Spiller. We don't think he'll be in the 4th round. In fact, there was a report this past week, Scott, just hang on here a second, bear with me. There was a report that he could sneak into the 1st round. That is astonishing to me. That has not been talked about at all during the pre-draft process. That's the wildest thing I've heard, probably. That's one of the wildest things I've heard during this. And we know it's going to be a surprising draft. I've seen crazy things happen. I'm not even saying like there's impossible for that to happen. Right. But that would be insane. If
the other interesting thing is, and Buccaneer fans out there, they might be wondering, what about Breece Hall from Iowa State? You and I both like Breece Hall. We just don't have any intel that they're high on Breece Hall. Now, we have not nailed all of the top 30 visits. It could be that Breece Hall was one of those guys. We just don't know. So we're reporting what we do know. And that is, so far, they like Dameon Pierce from Florida. They like Isaiah Spiller. They like Rachaad White. All 3 of those guys have been to the facility. All 3 of those guys interviewed with the Buccaneers at the combine.
Yeah, no question. They will take a running back. We just don't know exactly when they'll take a running back. It will probably depend on the other positions. Hopefully it's lower on the priority list. Fingers crossed that they can still get a good guy in the 4th round. That's a fine area to get that. It's going to be a lot harder to get a good tight end or D tackle or safety at that range of the draft. So let's hope their priorities are in order.
Well, speaking of priorities, if you're hungry, and I think I'm hungry every day, John, and about you, but
I am.
Pewter people, if you're hungry every day like we are, make sure you head to Beef O'Brady's.
You want beefy? Nobody out-beefs beefs. Try the O'Brady Burger, made with premium Angus perfectly seasoned and topped with melted provolone. It's an all-star, just like that other Brady in town. And if you're tailgating, you might want to pile on Beef's award-winning wings, too. Traditional or boneless in whatever sauce or dry rub you crave. Dine in, to go, or even catering. Play it your way. See you at Beef's.
Speaking of Beef O'Brady's, whoa, they're the presenting sponsor of the Pewter Report Draft Show. Folks, you might have seen it last year. This year is going to be even bigger and better. We're going to do it outright with Ledyard on his right off into the sunset. We're going to be at the team's headquarters this year because there's no COVID. We're going to be there at the Advent Health Training Center. live April 28th, 29th, and 30th. We're going to be there an hour before the draft starts every single one of those days, doing some pregame for you guys, letting you know with the latest news we've heard regarding the Buccaneers. And where can you find this great draft show 3 days coming up later this week? Well, you can find it right here on Pewter Report TV on our YouTube channel. That's right. Make sure you subscribe to Pewter Report TV. Hit the notifications. That way we'll send you a reminder. We're getting ready to go live on Thursday night. The draft starts at 8. We'll go live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. On Friday, April 29th, the draft starts at 7 p.m. We'll be going live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The draft kicks off at noon on Saturday, April 30th, and we'll have an 11 a.m. start time. So have breakfast with us on day 3 of the draft. Pewter Report TV, again, subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button. And it's all sponsored by Beef or Brady's. Good food, good sports.
Absolutely. And I like how you used all the red helmeted potential first round picks, but Trey McBride of the 5 players we mentioned, just, I mean, you got to have the right helmet color, buddy.
Right.
Buddy,
Sorry.
it matches
Green.
the color scheme.
Green gold.
If you're the pick, I mean, it's not our fault. Like, you
That's
should have found a way to be on a red team.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of people don't like the first round pick with Logan Hall. Some people don't like the second round pick with Trey McBride. I don't think they really wouldn't have liked Trey McBride at 27, but we do think it's a possibility. His range is like it always is for the top tight end in a class where there isn't a clear elite guy or a clear first round guy. It's always hard to figure out. Like Hayden Hurst, for example, who's clearly a worse player, but always was than McBride, in my opinion, went at the end of the first round. And that was just like a wow. Like that was just where teams felt like they needed to go for tight end. Like they felt like they needed to make that pick. There seems like there's always a couple teams that need to jump the gun on tight end. So I don't know if he gets to 60. I think they're just trying to come away with him in this draft. And I don't know how it's going to be. I could see a trade down from 27 and then a trade up from 60. There's just a lot of avenues.
John, it could be a whole bunch of smoke, So, speaking of smoke, Smoke Monday. Auburn safety Smoke Monday. Okay, so we have a cornerback and we have a safety for Todd Bowles. Why? Because
we're in round 7 now, by the way.
That's right. Round 7. 2 picks.
Couple picks for Mr. Irrelevant.
That's right. And speaking of Mr. Irrelevant, saw Grant Stewart last night. He would love to have Logan Hall here in Tampa. And I saw Carlton Davis, and I asked him about Smoke Monday. He didn't play with them because Carlton's been in the NFL for a minute, but he obviously watches his War Eagles and said that this Tiger really is an alpha. He's just a big-time playmaker. He had 3 pick sixes in college, including a big one against Alabama. What do you like about Smoke Monday? Well, you like his size, 6'2", 207, and he was a 3-year starter, saw playing time as a freshman. So he's got a lot of experience in the SEC. He's battle-tested, and he's just a very energetic player. Carlton Davis said that he is like the Devin White of the secondary. Like he's just a high energy player. Now, when he said that, I'm sure he didn't mean undisciplined, John, but the reality of it is he's a little bit of an undisciplined player. That's why he's in the 7th round. This is not a finished product. He is a very good athlete. He's a very good football player, but definitely needs to be coached up. But you know what? In the 7th round, to get a depth safety that might help you out in a couple of years, and with some good coaching could be a starting caliber player, but in the meantime, help you out on special teams. Listen, Jason Latt likes those Auburn Tigers. We saw KJ Britt last year. We've seen Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis. He's already brought in Roger McCreary, another cornerback from Auburn. And they also brought in Smoke Monday for a top 30 visit, John.
Yeah, I don't know whether Smoke Monday is going to be there in the end of the 7th or not. He is a core special teamer off the bat. He has not had a ton of ball production in his career, but every time he's got it, he's scored a touchdown, basically. Yeah. So he's 3 defensive touchdowns, I believe. He's created some splash plays in college on special teams as well. Just a fun, energetic type of player, the type that in day 3 his teams start targeting. What we kind of did with these 7th rounders was we kind of tried to pick guys who would be in the 6th, 7th round range.
Yeah.
Just in case there was that possibility of the Bucs maybe adding a 6th round pick at some point in the draft.
Right.
We can't really give them a 6th round pick right now in these 7 round mock drafts because we don't have one. We don't do trades with these. But in case there is that trade, we tried to pick players who might be a little bit higher than this 7th rounder. So if they stay here at both these 7s, maybe these picks are a little bit unrealistic, but we just think there's a decent chance at some point in the draft, a 6th or a 5th gets added or something like that. And then all of a sudden guys like Smoke Monday are probably in the conversation with these picks. So we're hedging a little bit in just terms of trying to be predictive of how this draft might unfold for Tampa Bay, given what we think they want to do, which is trade back at some point.
Right.
So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But either way, be a great pickup here because his core special teamer replaces Andrew Adams immediately and is probably, has more upside to be a better special teamer at least, and a nice guy in the locker room, the kind of player you want to add on day 3. I think a lot of teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And our whole job, it really isn't even to be right with the mock drafts and the Bucs best bets. We like when that happens because, it makes us feel good. We put a lot of work into this, but really is to put these guys on your radar, Bucs fans. It's to have you become familiar with some of the players they're really diving into and guys that could be Buccaneers. To finish out the mock draft, Isaiah Weston. John, you did an interesting write-up about the wide receivers that Jason Licht has drafted and the traits that they look for. And they look for size, speed guys. And this is a player that ran a 4.42. He's a small school guy out of northern Iowa, but 6'3", 211. Kind of has that Justin Watson type size, speed frame coming out of northern Iowa. But the thing that would really, I think, catch Bruce Arians, and in this case, really, Byron Leftwich's eye, is the fact that he averaged about 22, 23 yards per catch. He is a deep ball guy. I said in the write-up, he's kind of like a poor man's Christian Watson. Watson's getting a lot of early second round, maybe even late first round buzz at North Dakota State. He was a Senior Bowl guy. This is a similar type receiver, not polished, needs some work. It's going to be a big jump from the FCS level to the NFL, but similar body size, similar speed, similar ability, similar deep ball guy as Christian Watson.
And he'll be 25 in October.
Yep.
So
that's why he's in the 7th round.
You're right. Why he's in the 7th round? You mentioned it. Exactly right. Physically, exactly what the Bucs look for in the draft. Obviously, they get away from that when there's a guy that's really fast, like a Scotty Miller, Jalen Darden, somebody with return ability. Most of the smaller receivers they've drafted, they felt like could also be returners. Even Scotty probably fit that to a degree. But who's the returner who was there for a while? I can't remember his name now. He's a pick like 5-6 years ago. I forget. Kalen Clay. Yeah, smaller guy. Again, he wasn't even that fast, I don't think, but they thought he could be a returner. That's when they take a smaller guy, it's usually because of that. So when they're not looking for a returner, and I don't think they are this year, they're looking for size, speed, leaping ability. Weston, 6'3.5", 214 pounds, 32.5-inch arms. He's got the almost 79-inch wingspan, 4.42 40 at the combine. A 1.49 10-yard split is bonkers, a 40-inch vertical, an 11.3 broad. Then he doesn't do the agilities. He goes to the pro day and does the agilities, and they're terrible. I don't think that's the end of the world for big wide receivers at all. However, he's obviously very unrefined. There's drops in traffic. He's not necessarily consistently a contested catch monster or anything like that. There are flashes. There's inconsistencies. He needs a lot of development. Obviously, it's why he's in the 7th round. Opinions are all over the place. If you just read his athletic profile, you'd think there's no way this guy makes it to the 7th. Brugler and a couple others think he's going to be a free agent, an undrafted free agent signing.
Right.
It's going to be very interesting to see how that part plays out for Weston. But this is basically the end of the draft. This is what the second to last pick in the draft. So this is a very realistic pick for the Bucs. Could absolutely happen in the 7th or even the 6th.
Travis Johnson, right, is another, not Tyler Johnson, Travis Johnson, the kid from Montana State, who's been on the practice squad for a while. Very similar size, speed, traits kind of guy that they look for. So this kind of fits the mold a little bit. Justin Watson, Travis Johnson, and really in the 7th round, you're drafting people that you don't want to have to contend for and recruit in the undrafted free agency, the draft 2.0, where when the draft ends, everyone starts getting on the phone trying to get the priority undrafted free agents. A lot of times teams in the 7th round would just pick guys that they think are going to be the most sought after in the undrafted free agency.
Yep, absolutely. No question about it. So there's our 7th round mock. We don't know if it's going to completely come true. Hopefully we get a couple. Remember, this is predictive, so this is what we do think, but also make sure you check out Bucs Best Bets. Every position is up except safety, which is tomorrow. Matt's doing those, and corners, which is Wednesday. I'm doing those. So we'll have your Bucs Best Bets at safety and corner coming up over the next 2 days, as well as our positional previews for all those players and kind of our scouting notes on them and things like that. So look for those articles at pewterreport.com. Hopefully I can get a big board up. Hopefully I can get a 32-pick mock draft up. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Thoughts and prayers for that. We'll see what happens with those things. But trying to get all that content up for you this week at Pewter Report and the draft show this weekend.
We're going to have another Pewter Report podcast Tuesday night, and Wednesday
Mhm.
night, right?
Yep.
We're doing prime time all week. So make sure if you're used to coming at 4 o'clock and you say, where the hell is this Pewter Report podcast today? Well, hang on a couple hours, folks.
Right.
7:30 tomorrow night, 7:30 Wednesday night. And then the big shows are coming up, right? That's the draft show. And that's going to be April 28th, 29th, and 30th. So we're going to be going prime time tonight, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and then all day on Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. on day 3.
Yep. Get a full week with y'all. Tomorrow I'll be hosting for sure. We'll have some more of the Pewter Report crew rotating in here as well with us. As JC mentions here, undrafted free agent best bets is coming on Thursday as well. He'll have that list up for y'all as well. So you can key in on some undrafted free agents who will probably the Bucs will target on Saturday evening after the 7th round concludes. So lots of great content coming your way. Can't wait to do it with y'all. It's going to be awesome. Until tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much once again for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.